Good day. This is Chris Miller, and you are listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. It is a beautiful spring day here in Dallas. I know I love to give you a little weather report about the weather here. I am really excited about today's guest, and let me tell you why. When I wrote my book, I had a specific personality in mind that would read it. And so when I met Curtis, and I started talking to him, I'm like, oh my God, this is my demographic. This is a spiritual artist. So I want to give you a little background on how I met Curtis. I submitted a painting into a show, a juried show, and at the opening, he had won. He was recognized for his work, which, by the way, I think is behind him, and you'll see it shortly. A beautiful sculpture. I just love it. And so we met there just briefly, and we talked and shared ideas, and I liked him a lot. Well, zoom forward, probably a year, maybe even longer. I run into him again when I am teaching. I don't know if you know this, but I do presentations at local arts organizations. Anybody that wants me to come in and do a presentation about my book, about the techniques. And sure enough, Curtis walks in with his wife, Karen, and he comes up and says, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I was like, "What?" So
No, I don't.
that, so let me introduce Curtis Frederick, and a true spiritual artist. And I'm so excited because he does sculpture. We've never had a sculpturist on here, but he also does painting. I think he's just an artist at heart. So good morning, Curtis. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Yeah, I am. That sculpture behind you is what you had at that show, right?
Yes, yes. That's strike a pose is what I've called it. I don't know if you're seeing. And be honest, this is one of those that it started out, and all I knew I wanted to go horizontal instead of vertical, and that's it. And these things amaze me because you go into it having no sketch, no idea where it's going, and
So
ends
you
up
did not pre-sketch that.
zero, and it's amazing. And to me, it looks like somebody laying down with their hand on their hip, and I don't know, strike a pose on the beach.
And so that I love that because that's how I paint. You know, a
Yeah,
lot some artists will, you know, they'll do detailed pre-drawings and then they'll sketch it out on the board. And I'm
right.
like you, I just kind of start
Kind of
painting.
moving. Yeah, just jumping in the stream and going with it. And I think that's a big deal for me. Is like it's kind of like being in that in that flow. And I use stream as a metaphor, but it's being in that flow and getting in there. And that's the hardest thing, though. I think sometimes that is the hard. It sounds so easy, but it is so difficult, and you have to train yourself on that. And when you have those moments, and you do, and after hours and hours of sculpting and following the flow of the lines in the sculpture, and then you get, you have this final, and you're like, wow, wow, what first of all, even as an abstract art, you're like, what is it? Is it anything? Is it just a flow? Is it an energy? I had that for the 2-3 weeks. So I don't know, it's amazing.
Well, you know, see, listeners, you just heard like everything out of Curtis's mouth. I'm like, ding, 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 and that's exactly, Curtis, why I wrote the book, because
Yeah,
I would have some days when I went in the studio and that happened, beautiful
right.
flow, and then other days where I'd go in and literally like get mad
Yeah.
or have a temper tantrum, or
Yeah.
I mean, I tell that to people. I literally like rip the hole through a canvas, and so it is about how do we get back into flow? How do we do it?
It takes practice. For me, it takes practice. Now I'm speaking for myself. It takes practice. It's uh, man, it's funny. And I've listened to some of your other interviews, and it's like it seems like artists kind of have similarities in that, like what it takes. I've heard one of them where I started lighting candles in my studio. That's
Uh,
weird for me. Now the reason I did it, I found some on sale, so it worked out. But I just wanted something different. Music is huge. Music can put me in a good flow. But to be honest with you, once I get into that flow of let's say we're talking about sculpture, once you're in it, to me it feels like everything goes away. It's just like you're in that. I say, I think sports people call it a zone. You get into a zone, and man, when you do that, I remember my first time I had a teacher at a community college, and I was taking ceramics, and I was fairly new into ceramics. I had taken it earlier, and then this was 10 years later, I got back into it. And I started getting into that flow in ceramics. And I'd sit in there, she'd let me stay longer after class. And I remember telling her, like, it's like I was discovering something. I was like, I said, Margaret, I said, there's something with this. I feel like I've been in here for an hour, and I think it was 5 hours, and it just went by so quick. And I think that's the flow you're trying to get into. But I think you have to throw everything, all the outside noise and washing clothes, cleaning the floor, whatever it is around you, you have to get rid of that in order to get into that. And you have to stop. I tell people my best work, I think, is when I don't think.
Oh,
That's so weird, but stop thinking. Get out of my, if I can get out of my way, I think I wrote it on my bathroom wall in my studio. If Curtis, it's something, if I could get in my own way, I could be very successful.
Oh, I love it. See, exactly,
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
that's why I think once you learn that process, whether you take it into around a wheel and do pottery or a painting or knitting or landscaping, it's a
Right.
process.
It is a process. It is. That's funny you say landscape. I just told you I'm a landscaper, and it's the same thing. You meet with customers, and most people have an idea of what they want, and we go through it. Yeah, I've done drawings, I've done things, and it sort of works, but it don't. But I always tell them, I said, listen, once we get into this, a lot's going to change. And of course, a lot of times there's money, price and stuff involved, and you have to have this. You have to nearly get your customer, and this is a whole different thing. But you nearly, I guess it's the same in commission of artwork, but you have to get your customer in that flow with you. And when you start flowing on this landscape, of course, some things are set in stone. You know where this goes and this goes, but it changes. And I think it's like that when you're in a flow of a sculpture. And I don't know if I can mention it now, but I told you about there
Yeah,
was a
no.
sculptor named Void. And I'm telling you, this is a true story, and it blew my mind. I know there was, a long time working on it, but it started out, me and my wife, we love African art, and we've collected a few masks and things, but I just had this vision of this sculpture with a long, tall female, just exaggerated tall and thin. And I started working on it, and you stretch the clay, and I'm a slab builder, and I kind of mix things. But long story short, as I started working on it, it it just changed. And now it was still at the time, it was still human, but then I started doing blue jeans on this sculpture. Okay, an African woman would not have the blue jeans. So
Maybe.
then it had arms, it had a head, it had a shirt on, and then it had and this is blows my mind. So it had in the center of the torso was empty. It was a hole. So I just and then when I say this process, I'm just going with it. I'm just moving with it now. And why I put a hole there, I don't know. But in clay, you gotta be careful. I have to be sure when you fire it, air can escape. So I have this thing, I started engineering it to have a hole. And by the end of it, it was a male with hands over the face and a hole in the center. And I call it void. And why I'm telling you the story is that my whole concept of what I wanted was something African looking
Mm.
sculpture. And at the end of the day, this was a very bad time in my life. And at the end of the day, after that was finished, I called it void because at that time in my life, I was missing so much in my life, and I was miserable. I was at a bad stage in my life, and it teared me up because I'm realizing that I made it. It's like I say, it take a process. It wasn't like I did it in one day, one setting. But through that process, I kind of lost myself, and I ended up doing I think, a self portrait, and I was empty inside, and it was like, holy cow! I end up selling it to someone in, I think, Chicago or something. But and I wonder, even the person that bought it, what? Because I didn't get to talk to them, but I'm thinking why they bought that and what were they feeling, and I was like, God, it's so personal because it's like a self portrait. So I thought it's kind
Yeah, Curtis, I love this. I love where we're going here because
of
I don't know. I don't know if I told you I have a solo show in September, and I'm
right.
doing 8 paintings, and I've decided to match them with with a song.
I like that.
And what I'm trying to find is music that has an emotion, right? Like
Right.
I'm listening to all these songs I've listened to over the years, right? You know, songs that were at key points, like you said, very emotional points of your life
Right.
where
Right.
you just were, you know, you were let go, someone dropped you, or you lost a
Right.
job, or I mean, we have songs all over with
Oh
those
yeah.
emotions. But I love how you just described that, where you kind of just have to go with it, right? You
Yeah. And it's like, like we said in the beginning, it sounds easy, and it's not. It's hard to let go of your whole thought process that we're so, as kids. I mean, going to school and you learn a strict regiment of what's right, what's wrong. This is how you do this. This is the letters. I mean, just the basics. So we know what to do, what not to do. And then when you're sitting down in art, it's it's not that. It's not that. And that's what excites me about art, is that it's not that. It's not structured. I don't do well with structure. I'm terrible with it. And it's just right up my alley for me, because I can sit there and I'm a perfectionist. That's the only thing, and that's another thing that I've really had to train myself with, is not being a perfectionist. I don't want to do ugly work, and to say ugly, I don't, Twombly. I mean, there's artists that have a hard time. I have a Joan Mitchell. I have a hard time looking at her work, and I hate that, because I'm like, am I ignorant? Am I not smart enough to understand it? Because it gives me a bad feeling, like it's not pretty. But yet I'm like, I respect them in a way that, wow, I kind of wish I could do that. But it's hard. It's a process, and it's hard to get there sometimes. You know.
know, it's so funny. So I listened to this song and I painted something in it. It's starting to actually have a literal shape in it. And I don't do literal, right? I don't do
Right.
literal. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this for the show. And then I thought, and this song is corny. It's like, I don't want to admit to people
What is it? Just
that I
whisper
paint,
it.
right? And so you're right. When you talk
Yeah.
about this process of not being perfect, or
Right.
not, it there is walking into that Brene Brown vulnerability,
Uh-huh.
right? You're putting it out there.
Yeah. Well, that's what's funny with Boyd, the one with the hands over the face. It was not good. It wasn't like, the hands were a little oversized. It was not proportioned right. And I remember the first time I went to a show, and I was just so embarrassed, because one of my teachers was there. And I thought, oh my God, I know I can do a human being better than this and make it really realistic. But the God or whoever said, it's not about that. Today, this is about, and I know it sounds crazy, but it's like, to me, it was like God was saying, hey, it's not about that. It's not about the proportions or the hands. Oh my God, they look amazing. They're perfect. Like, is that a real person? It was about showing something, telling something. I didn't know that. And that's a God's truth. It's like, I didn't know that, because I knew what I wanted. I'm like, I'm doing an African woman, and I want to copy these African artists because I love their work and I think it's amazing. And I so didn't do that. And I didn't even do a human being very well, but I did do something that told a story about myself and what I was feeling at the time. That to me blows my mind, because it wasn't, because it wasn't prepared. I didn't prepare that. I didn't see that coming. That's crazy. And only in art can I do that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, of course, I have so long not done art to sell. I just did it for my
Yeah.
own expression, because, I don't want to have to do it to make someone else happy, or make the perfect hands because it's
All right.
accurate. And you're right. There's that, right? You're always, that mind is telling you stuff, and you have to, like you said, a place of no mind, right?
Right.
You have to
Stop
say,
thinking.
shut up. Shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. Right. And you just keep going.
Yeah, stop thinking, Curtis. Just, hey, I didn't do very well in school. So I'm like, all right, just stick to that, man. Stop thinking. Just focus on whatever is your hands are, what's going on. I mean, let them go. And that's hard to say. Right now I'm doing realistic stuff. And it's like, what? And it's blowing my mind. But you know what? I'm in, I'm in that stream, and I'm going to go with it for a while and see where it leads. And that's what that is. That to me, that's exciting. When you don't, I don't like doing. I mean, we do all do. We have to do things on purpose every day. Brush our teeth and sweep the floor. I mean, there's things every day we got to do. And in art, you're just, there's nobody telling you, I mean, why do commissions? My last commission, what the lady wanted as far as a sculpture, it went 360. And I told her, I said, listen, she didn't pay nothing down. So it was, I said, listen, if you don't like it, it's not gonna hurt my feelings. I'm gonna put it on my property because I really like it. And she loved it. And it's like, it was totally different than what we had talked about. And that's okay. I'm good with that. So,
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I'm working on a commission right now, and I'm like, but this is the color palette they want, or whatever, they
yeah,
want but then I don't know if it works in this way. And but I love how just letting it go and letting it unfold.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it makes the best work. I mean, my best work is my work that seems to be less thought out. Anyway, that's what we've been talking about. It just seems to be the most successful. And in my sales, I make very little sales, as I say. I'm a full-time landscaper still. Or I say part-time
Yeah.
artist, part-time landscaper. But the ones that I have sold, most of my work has been ones that are just not thought out at all. And it's just, that's amazing to me. I mean, it's amazing that, you just, like you say, how do you get into that flow, and that, without, and you say you're doing, the show, and you're probably thinking, what should, that's the worst thing. Artists is like, what do they want? What do people want to see? What's going to make people happy? And that's where we mess up. You know, you have to think about yourself and your creative energy that year, that month, that day, whatever it is. Because I'll tell you what, it changes. Because what I'm doing today, I think I've told my wife before, like, I will never do that. And here I am doing it, and I'm happy doing it. So what are you going to do?
Well, yeah, wow. Being like you just said, three things I need to respond to. So, you're right. When I've done shows before, I had pre-existing work that I did in my own connection,
Right.
and I just displayed them. This is the first time that I decided to do 8 new paintings for a show, like specifically for the show.
Right.
And immediately you get caught up in, oh, what's cool? What is cool music? What's not cool
trending?
music? What's trending? What will they want to hear? And I you're right. I have to, it's a challenge. In fact, this is a good segue here, because what I've started doing on my website, I added a journal, and I'm writing about the psychological process that this has been for me.
Right.
Like each day I started just this week about the idea, and who knows where it's going to end up.
Right.
But the psychological process of letting go of control, the process of letting it just unfurl, like that sculpture did for you.
Right.
It told you a story.
Right.
That you
It
didn't even.
did. It did, an unexpected story, but it was the truth. That's what was crazy about the sculpture, is that it told me the truth. You're empty. You're missing a lot in life. I mean, I was in a bad place. It was another marriage, a bad marriage, a bad situation. I was abusing, from alcohol to everything else. I mean, it was just a bad time in my life. At that time, I was trying to satisfy everyone around, just like we're talking about with art. But then I like, hey, let's go to the bar. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Knowing I didn't want to, knowing that my best times in life was when I was doing sculpture, when I was doing ceramics, when I'm in my yard, when I'm planting a new tree, when I'm mowing the grass. And I just kept on this. Well, I don't know why. And for me personally, I don't know if I should even go here, but I didn't love myself at the time. And I realized that, and that took a journey. And that's funny. We were looking at things like, when did all this take place? When did this change? 2017, and it was huge. I mean, that was void. That was Hawk's Nest, which I should tell you the story about, a painting. I mean, so much happened that year. Got a new marriage. I mean, everything just blossomed. But before then, I was empty because I didn't love myself. I didn't care about myself. I could abuse my body. I could abuse my time. It's like everything I was doing prior to that was what Curtis didn't want to do. And until I started paying more attention to myself, and to me, I thought that was always a selfish thing. But when you start paying more attention to yourself, what are you doing? Are you happy? Are you really happy? Are you doing what you want to do? And I'm talking about not just sitting there talking to yourself, but really listening to your, I call it my gut, and listening to your inners is like, what do you want to do? And if you're so unhappy and you're empty, change it. And and it was a long process for me. And I think I've told you about the morning notes. And listen, if people listening don't know what that is, that works. And I'm not a writer. I laugh about it because I mean, I could go get my morning notes and read them and be like, oh wow. But when I started doing that, what it was for me, I think it's supposed to be 3 pages. I think I do 2 pages. I get a little lazy. But first thing in the morning, just woke up, feel bad, slept good. I mean, it could be whatever, and I'm like, I have nothing to write about this morning. I'm like, and listen, through that one phase I was telling you, that was such a bad time in my life. Man, it might have been just curse words. I mean, I remember writing curse words that I was so angry with life. Really could care less if I woke up. Be kind of comforting to be just done. And that's bad. And I would start on the morning notes and just start, like I say, sometimes it's curse words. And then as you wrote the curse words, then maybe you start writing, why are you writing the curse words? And then you start writing. And I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. Hate my guy, I don't even want to do this today. And the weather sucks. But what's funny, as you wrote day by day by day by day, first of all, you get everything off of your chest. And it's like, I think that's what's so important about in relationships when people don't have a good communication. And it's the same with yourself. If you can't communicate and even talk to yourself, and this was a form for me as writing out this daily journaling of just get rid of that stuff. It's not that big a deal, and do what you should be doing because I think we all know what we really need to do for ourselves to be happy and love ourselves. But I thought it was such a selfish act until you start doing it and you realize all of a sudden it's just like this black fog just lifted and it began to rise. And it was amazing. And that's a true story. I mean, if somebody was telling me this 20 years ago, I'm like, God, dude, this is a weirdo hippie dude or something, talking like. But here it is happening to me. I mean, I was a person I wouldn't have said the God word ever because I thought that is so weird. Like, I would spell it. I mean, even in 2017, when I started feeling like maybe this is happening to me and maybe there is a God, I would spell it out. I would use it slightly in conversation with only the closest. And then it starts spreading, and here I'm telling you, and
Yeah, well, I want to tell our listeners, in case you're not familiar, what he's talking about here is morning pages, and it's from the Artist's Way. Anne, I'm trying to remember her last name, Anne Cameron or Cameron, and is that right? Yeah, and it's a technique where you sit down and you just stream of thought, right? It's stream of thought.
Whatever's on anything. Chores to do, it could be anything, but it's going to change as you write, and it will. And it blew my mind as you write these morning pages, notes, that you really start writing a decent journal of how you're feeling, what's going on. And it's pretty amazing, and it can really it can set you in a good place, especially in first thing in the morning. And to get you going and just for me it just let me leave everything behind that was not helping in my life and let me change the direction.
Do you know, I did it. That's actually where my book came from. I tell people because I go to Santa Fe once a year and I wasn't committed I would do morning pages for like 2 or 3 months, and then it would dribble
Right.
off. And then I do it for 3 more months later on. But what happened was you step back and I reread them.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God. And then you start seeing loops, like where you're looping through the
Uh-huh.
same negative thoughts,
Exactly.
oh, I'm so poor. There's not enough money. And you see that you kind of go
Uh-huh.
through these cycles. We're like little robots.
Right.
And so morning pages for me gave me an opportunity to step back and watch myself from a distance.
Yeah. And
And
like
and
tell yourself, like, hey man, grow up. Get out
right.
of this rut. I mean, it really makes you aggravated at yourself. I mean, I got mad at myself a little bit, and I can look back now and I still got a journey to go through. I'm not a perfect human being, and I'm trying to better myself every single day. But I look back and I think, good Lord, what was wrong with me? But I was deluded with so much of everything going on around me, trying to make friends and all these people happy, and like instead of myself. And I think that's huge. I think it's huge, especially in art, because at the time I didn't have time for art. I mean, I was making time for everything else, from work to friends, everything else except art, knowing that I love art, man. I mean, that's the thing that really makes my heart swell up. So that's what it did for me.
Curtis, I just love talking to you because for one thing, that like we just talked, a podcast interview is almost like a piece of art. I have an idea
Yeah,
of what I want to talk about, and then
but it can go.
yes, it just goes wherever it wants to go. Um, but I love what you bring to it. I love
Yeah.
the consciousness that you're bringing to it. And like I opened this up to the listeners. It's that consciousness that when we were talking at the in Frisco,
Uh-huh.
or I'm sorry, it was Rockwall
Rockwall, yeah.
Art League. When you start, I'm like, this guy's got it. And anything you're talking about, it's exactly right. It's about stepping back from your mind. It's about watching your process. It's about making it a practice to write your morning pages. I shared that. I once was doing a class with someone who also did morning pages, and she said, I said to her, oh, well, I reread them. And then I realized how screwed up I was.
Yeah.
And you know what she said? She said, oh, I don't, I throw them out. And I was like, oh,
No, no, no.
what a missed opportunity.
Hey, listen, I gotta tell you a little secret. Like
Yeah.
I've kept, and like if I showed you, it's those cheap ringed notebooks. That's what I use, because I keep it next to my toilet, and it's a good place to sit down in the morning. But I have, I think 4 of them, which is a lot because that's everything. And what I'd like to do one day, and I know it's very, you're throwing yourself out there really, but I'd like to turn into some kind of a collage of art. And I think it'd be really, I don't even know if there'd have to be art on there, but just these words. And to me, I remember thinking, man, I would love to do that. It's this one big piece, so I'm keeping mine. So maybe one day you'll see it on a gallery wall, man.
Yeah,
you
we'll
can
see.
you can
See
go
all
through
the
there and read it. Yeah.
all the messaging and it's an onward journey, right? We're never
Yeah.
done. I mean, like I just told you, I'm planning the show. I've written a book. I feel like but still
Yeah.
I'm thinking about them instead of me. I'm
Right.
painting and thinking about how will they respond instead of how do I express?
But you shouldn't do that.
Right.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. And I mean, listen, this conversation you're having with yourself, I do it all the time. I mean, every time a show or something, I mean, we do it. I don't know if it's something just bred in us that we have to, like I say, you want to make people. I mean, I like to, but I'm the cook at the house, and I want to make the best meal for my wife. I mean, I get that, but it's like we in art. Like I'm talking about Cy Twombly, and like that disturbs me when I see his stuff, but at the same time, I respect the heck out of him. Like, how, wow, I wish I could do that and not. But now, listen, I will say this. I do try, as that abstraction or whatever is going on, I try to make it pretty for me. Like, I want to look at pretty, and so, when you worry about what subject matter, or if it's abstract, what colors, I guess. I mean, what lines, what shapes, square, are we going curves? I think you go with it. You just have to forget. stop using your brain.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge, Curtis. I'm like, because it started looking like something to me, and I'm like, no, I'm an abstract artist.
I don't want to go down this place.
I
No.
don't draw birds, giant birds on canvas. It's not me.
And then
And
that's the funny thing. And I had to, when people see your work and they're like, I mean, I wish I could show you some sculptures. They're like, is that, and it's like is that a pencil or something with a eraser and I'm like, what? I mean, I guess, is that a Twizzler? Like, no, it's just art. Can it just be art? I think that's what bothers me sometimes is like, and that's the whole thing. Like, I hate to have categories and just, say, and that's why you say I'm all over from, I do ceramics, I do stone, I do metal, I do painting, now I'm doing oil. Now I'm painting with steel dust. Blows my mind.
That's another whole subject that's amazing.
Oh, wow. It's amazing. And I got to tell you this, Chris, this just happened last night. It brought me out of the studio in here to tell my wife, like, man, something special is going on. And I don't get totally into it, but I'm using steel dust, literally from grinding down steel, and it's dust, and I'm doing these paintings. So then, and this is so funny, and she helps me so many times on stuff like this. Now she thinks more than I do. I just go, but she's like, you should, all these times you're cutting this piece of steel and making these lines in it, that you should incorporate that next to these and let people know that this was painted with the lines taken out of this. So I put together in, I think 4 hours last night. I'm not finished. I'm going to start more on it today. A sculpture that's from an abstract sculpture that's based from making those cuts for the painting. And that just, to me, is so exciting because it's like you go from, you're working on one stage and I know a lot of artists do this, is when you're working on one project, painting, whatever it is, and then it evolutes into something else. And it's just, to me, that's amazing. And that's getting in that flow. And that's taking one thing, you're like, oh, this is successful and I love it. And then you're praying and something clicks and you're like, wow. And then we can take that and move it over here and you just keep evolving your work. And I think that's how you grow as an artist. And I think that's successful as an artist, not thinking about sales or you're in galleries or whatever, just as a personal artist, that's a success. To me, it is.
Yeah, I think, well, a couple things. First, I want to explain to the listeners clarify what you're talking about, because you explained this to me the other day, that you take metal and you chip away at it, and there's little fragments of
grind it down. I mean, it's finer than pepper, a fine pepper.
And it's metal though. It's made
steel.
Of metal. Steel.
What's amazing, listeners, is that these paintings, you can stick a magnet on it.
Oh,
blows my mind.
And you know what? Maybe if you send me a couple of those pictures, I'll put them in the YouTube so people can see this art. But you're doing
that'd be amazing.
You're doing these drawings with the metal flex.
With metal, and like I say, and a lot of them, most of them starting out, I rust them because it just looks amazing. So your typical blackish, dark gray turns into rust in seconds, and it blows my mind. But to stick a magnet on your painting is like, all right, this is pretty cool.
Well, I love this conversation because you're really good at just following it, right? You're following that inspiration.
Yeah, and then what I said last night, it went from that into this. My wife gives me a little hint on the metal that I'm getting the material for the painting, and then it flows into the sculpture, and it's like, wow. I mean, this is, and like I say, it's not, everything's unplanned. And that's what I'm saying, is when you can get into that unplanned, and listen, I mean, we do things when I'm doing a painting with that metal. I mean, I know I'm painting a giraffe, I'm painting, whatever, and this is realistic. I know where I'm going with it, but to evolve that into something else, sculpture, because I feel like I'm a sculptor, but at the end of the day, I guess I'm just an artist, and I don't have to have a label as what I am. And I really, that used to bother me. And we've done a few shows. We did one in Fort Worth, and the tent shows. And everybody's stuff is cohesive. And I get that. Yeah. And mine's not. And it bothers me. I'm like, okay, I gotta be like these other tents. And I'm like, maybe that's just not me. Maybe I'm not a cohesive artist. Maybe my cohesiveness is blending different materials and aspects of art together rather than just being a painter or a sculptor. And I listen, I think I'm becoming okay with that. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
have the best tint like cohesiveness, but that's okay.
Oh, that's lovely. No, that is lovely. And I think, perhaps that's what I mean by a spiritual artist. It's someone that's just going with it and feeling it and
Yeah.
expressing. And I often it's hard not to, right? It's hard not to get caught up in the can I make money here
Oh, it
or
is.
and
Oh,
even awards like award recognition. You get caught up in that. And then
oh, you
who are
do.
you who are you painting for? Are you painting for your inner soul, your spirit, or are you painting for that judge that likes uh landscapes or whatever, women's rights, or and so you gear it towards what they want.
Right, right. And I've done that. And I've done that. And you know what's funny? While you're doing that piece, it doesn't feel the same. And you can lie to yourself, but I'm telling you, if you listen to your soul, your gut, it doesn't feel the same. There's a different feeling while you're doing the art. And I totally believe in that because I felt it. I've done things for, oh man, they love, we're showing something at a ranch or something. Well, okay, I'm gonna do some Western something. It's fine. I succeeded. But then you go out there, the sculpture behind me had no direction, no sketch, no anything. I just know how I wanted it to set. And that's it. And then, you that journey, and I say that journey through the process of creating it and making it is amazing. I mean, that feeling compared to doing a ranch scene that I can do, but it's a whole different journey and it's just a whole different feeling inside.
Yeah, really, like literally, when I talk about it's the journey, not the destination. It's about
Yeah,
being in that playful, connected, inspired place, right? That's
exactly.
where you want to be. Yeah,
It-
right?
it's fun. You want to, listen, I can't dance, man. I'm just telling you, I can't dance, but 2017 changes. I told you all these changes started happening. And I started dancing. It sounds crazy. Your listeners are probably like, this guy's on drugs.
No.
Like, but me and my wife would be out there dancing to a song. I mean, just dancing because it's funny. I think I do a lot of pieces that when I label them, when I title them, they seem to go to dance, and because I think that dancing is happy. I think dancing. I don't care. I mean, listen, if you saw me dance, it could be ridiculous, goofy dancing, but it's happiness. You know what I mean? And that's what I was feeling. And man, all of a sudden my sculptures went dark. The stuff I was doing prior to 2017, void with hole in a body and all, it just turned. And all of a sudden things started twisting. And like a ballet dancer, things started moving, things started playing. My sculptures started moving around. And it was like, and it reflected after making these changes in my life, and it reflected on just being happy. And that's what I would say to you on the music. You're like, man, eight paintings is a
Yeah.
lot. uh what I would do, I would take that music, your music, whatever it is, listen, that maybe nobody even knows the music you're listening to. I have no idea, but you listen to that song and you do that painting based on the feel of your body, the feel of your hands, the feel of do you want to dance? Does it make you cry? Does it make you happy? Does it, and I think that's really, to me, that's probably one of my favorite arts is emotional art. I'm not much for political art or, I do some art based on the planet and, trees getting cut down and stuff like that. But my favorite is emotional art because every single one of us has had bad times. We've all had good times. And if you can express that through art, I think it's going to appeal to every human being that's alive because to me that's amazing. And I've done several of those. And like I say, a lot of them are happy now. I don't do too much sad.
But
But
I think it's true. Emotions. are a universal language.
Exactly.
And it's how I actually I think you just got a new copy of my book, and listeners, I added a couple chapters to the book. If you buy it now, there's 5 more chapters, but that's it. It's closed. But I added a chapter on emotion.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's what makes us connect to each other. You know, you could sit there and say political causes, they're important,
Right.
but the emotional connection, connecting to another person, understanding their shared pain, their shared loss, their
We all
shared
have it.
shared happiness, right?
And shared happiness. We all have it. That's why this it's so hard sometimes to see so many differences in race and religion and politics. I get it. I get it to a point, but at the end of the day, no matter on the other side of earth, we I've started traveling more. My wife loves to travel. And that's one, and I'm a homebody, love to be at home, love to be in a studio in the yard. And it's funny though, traveling, you just realize that you can't speak their language. Maybe their food is different, but man, you realize that everybody's doing the same thing on one side of the planet than we're doing at our own home. It's the same thing, and the religion changes, language changes, but I just wish universally that we would be more one. I know 2 years ago, and it's kind of like with the Morning Notes doing this big mural or collage with them. I want to do this painting of a human body or somewhat of a human body that you can tell has legs and arms and a head, and just probably write every thing that we could from religion to politics to uh, slang for people, for their race, for just everything that we can label that we do label humans as, either how they practice religion, how they do politics, just anything, and just put it in this one huge sculpture of a body, just to let us know that whatever labels you put, we're all the same. We're one. We're one human, right? Until we have these weird aliens start shooting down on Earth, like it's
You
not
know,
good. I think it gets too complicated sometimes.
well,
So
first, Curtis, I have a feeling that's going to happen soon for you, that you're going to go with that
yeah,
idea in
I
the next
like that.
sculpture. I
Yeah,
do too. I do too. I think it's a wonderful message.
yeah,
Um I'll just spit this out. You know, I get downloads of books. You know, like I wrote this book because I felt it, and it was almost like a download
uh,
of inspiration. But my next book, I'm already thinking of my next book, and you just hit it. It's about oneness. It's
it is.
The whole book is going to be about recognizing oneness
Yeah,
in each other, in who we are, in humanity, all over the planet, the
I love
importance of
that.
the connection to the planet. One. And so when you say that, I'm just like, oh, that's great. You know,
I
it's just,
love I love that because yeah, you could take two people that just both of them just hate each other for whatever it is, and then you put them in the same hole where they're about to die or something together. I mean, they're gonna want to get out of that. They're gonna want to get out of that, and save themselves. But they're probably gonna work as a team to save themselves. It's just at the end of the day, I'm saying we're all together. We're all together as human beings on this planet, and it saddens me, and that's why I really can't watch the news. And I know you need to be alert of what's going on around you, but ooh, it can bring you down to be doing ugly and dark art again. I'd rather be doing dancing art.
yeah. And, that's part of your creative DNA. I think it's okay to do
Yeah.
ugly art.
It's saying nothing bad about anybody that does political stuff. I get it, and I get that you're trying to message things, and I like that too. I mean, I think I have all these ideas. When I see a school shooting again, I'm like, oh man, dude, I got to do something with it. Why
Well,
can't we buy ARs? I'm like, can't we just stop doing it? But so I think I start thinking of these sculptures. I'm gonna buy a bunch of crap, guns and meld
oh,
them together.
oh man, Curtis, I just thought the same thing. So have you heard all that drama about the David sculpture, the nude? I
And you
think
see
it's
his dinghy or something.
David. Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
kidding me.
No, in Florida, there was this whole big like, oh, this is offensive. And I thought
You're kidding me.
I would love to do an art show where you create a giant rifle or semi-automatic sculpture.
It wouldn't
Nobody
have
would
been, yeah.
What? We're not, nobody care. Oh, look at that. It's done
Oh
in
my God, that
stone.
uses the big shells, like
Yeah, yeah.
are
And
you
then, but if
kidding me?
we show a naked body, we show a naked form,
That you
artistic.
got when you go take a shower, you're gonna see that same body. It just blows my mind. Like, that's what I'm talking about. It's like,
Yeah.
people, where are we going?
Where are
Like,
we going?
yeah, that's sad. See, that saddens me.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah. And I think it's great. I love how you're dancing up there in that wonder, dancing literally
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
that joy. And,
yeah.
and if so, in that emotional place of connecting with other people.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. I gotta say this. One thing, it's congratulations on your book and this podcast, and just being on here with you today is just for me. It's really amazing to see my journey. I mean, we don't have time to go through all of it, but if we went back to 2015, 2012, 2010, I mean, those years, like, wow, like I would never in my wildest dreams see me sitting here and on a spiritual artist podcast. Like, that's amazing. So the
Thank you.
journey for me has it's been amazing, and I've had to really let go of all my thought process of what I think I know, and release that what I think I know about life and that I'm in control. That was my big deal. I was in control. If I want to do this, I can do this. I can figure it out. I was in so much control of my life and everything. But once I kind of let go and realized, like, well, if you're so in control of your life sucks right now. So you're doing a terrible job, man. So maybe you should just let something else kind of take over. And that's what I think your podcast is all about, or at least for me is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, is like letting, and we're talking about it in art, just letting tell you how you get into that flow. It's the same in life. Like, if if you're crazy mad about whatever in politics or something, and you want to kill people over it. You want to, shoot. I mean, it's like, whoa, man, something's controlling you. You know what I mean? And it's in a bad way, and you're making these bad decisions, and instead just let the good flow, roll over you, and have faith, and my goodness, man. I mean, it's just to me, it saved my life, and art's a huge part of it because I knew I loved art from the very beginning, from grade school. And so I'm like, let's go there. Let's go to a happy place. And
Yeah.
I've been in it. So
It saddens me when I think we put so much emphasis, and rightfully so, but we put so much emphasis on math and science in the
yeah,
schools. But art is all part of that creative process. You
it
can't,
is.
it brings so much to it. And it's about that intuition and inspiration and letting go.
Yeah,
And that's where creativity happens. That's where the idea happens. Science can implement the idea, or math can
exactly.
implement the idea. But the
Right.
ideas come from being in that flow,
Right.
you
That's
know?
listen, everything probably around our house. I mean, it's came from creativity, from these chairs that, I'm looking around the house, everything, these light bulbs above my head. I mean, think about that. I mean, you start thinking about these inventors, and they're artists.
Right.
And that just blows my mind how people, how they get to that. How did they get to that place where something don't exist on planet Earth, and then all of a sudden, you go. That just blows my. And that's that. And me and my wife, I talk about that a lot with abstract art. Is like, what really excites me about abstract art is that it doesn't exist. Like, I mean, there's a lot of similarities in some paintings and things, but for the most part, that one, there's not another one. And that's exciting. That's like, wow, how did you do? That's why, I had an obsession with Jackson Pollock, younger. And, I even thought then, it's probably part of my problem because of that. Okay, I gotta be a womanizer, I gotta be a drunk. That's what makes a good artist.
Right.
So, me and Jack Daniels had a little spill there for a while, and I was like, wow, you know what? This isn't making good art, man. I wake up with a hangover. I go to the garage at the time, I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. Now, how did it work for Pollock? I mean, but if you read his bio, it's like his best work, I think in the 50s or whatever, was when he was sober, a lot of it. So, I don't know, but yeah, you had to you follow your own path and let it flow.
Yeah, that's what I think he was good despite his personal flaws
Oh
or
yeah, yeah,
challenges. Let's say challenges, because I don't like the negativity of the word flaws. But you
yeah.
know what he represents to me is that he stood like that painting behind you. He stood and just let it transfer through his body, through his
Uh-huh.
physicality, and whatever expression he made. It's totally unique
Right.
to him because
Yeah.
his the length of his arm and the way he strokes and the flick
Uh-huh.
is
Yeah.
all part of that.
Oh
So
yeah. But it's amazing. Can you imagine being the first one to do, and I'm sure there's other people
yeah.
who make similar, but that's what excites me about abstract art in general. And like I say, I'm doing realism right now, but it still is my biggest, especially in sculpture. If I can take a human form and change it and turn it into something, and then if I can, like, you start working on both sides, like, okay, then make it abstracted, make it doing something, make it emotional. And it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like I tell you, it's like my most successful stuff is when I'm not even thinking that, and you just go into it and flow into the piece, and that's quite amazing to me.
Mm. Well, let me tell you, Curtis. I've had a couple people that I've actually brought back on the show a year or two later, and I will share with my listeners. I just love what you're sharing and talking about.
Right.
It's right on cue. So we'll have to keep that in mind.
And
So is
and
there?
listen, man, I'll tell you this. Whatever it is, I'm sure, I promise you, without planning, I'll be in some different area. I'll probably be, I don't know, doing paintings with tree bark. Something. I mean, something weird will be going on at the time. It'll probably be totally different. And but you know what? I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that. But it's taken a while to be okay with that. Cause it's like, like you say, we try to, you worry about these 8 paintings, like where they're at, who's looking at them. Like, I want to show well, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, we all want to be, and that's the thing. You want to be accepted.
Yeah.
And I think we question, like, can I be accepted if I just kind of do me? You know? Because look at school, like, I remember going to school, I hated it because I didn't, we didn't have a lot of money. And oh my God, I had to wear, I don't know if you know what tough skins are. They're basically pants made out of plastic, and everybody else has Levi's. So, I mean, it's one of those things, like, you want to do what everybody else is doing and be accepted. And I think in art, it's same way.
It's hard. Well,
Yeah.
I will remind my listeners that I'm going to put that's on my website. There's a little journal button, a sub page, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts as I wrestle with that. Can I be?
That'd
We'll
be,
see. I don't know, Curtis. Can I put that out there? It's a challenge. So
we'll see.
is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share that we didn't get to?
Oh man, I think we've talked about quite a bit. I mean, I think, yeah, if I said anything, I think, as far as artists, or just, hey, just love yourself. I think that's a big deal. That was a big deal for me in my life, and until I started loving myself and taking care of myself, and knowing, just as doing art seems so selfish. Like, I don't know if you've ever done it. You're in the process of, when I was in the process of doing art, I thought, man, shouldn't I be working? Like, working, you know what I mean? Like, making money. I mean, I could make more money, and that would be nice, for the budget. But I think you have to realize that it's not a selfish thing, but it's a self need, that we need that time. Whether it, and listen, like you say, in art, it don't have to be a painting or sculpture. It could be planting some pansies in the yard, or a tree, or anything, making cookies, anything that gets you out of, lets you flow with the energy of creating.
Oh. I love it, Curtis. That's a great way to end it.
Is that good?
I love it. And we all have that challenge. Or I do that all the time. But Friday or Thursday, I was like, oh, I have to write this report, and I'm like, but I want to paint. And you're right. In my mind, painting is not. No, it's part of what I have to do.
Yeah, there you go.
It's that goes back to that. When you think about the flight attendant analogy, you got to put your mask on first. If you
Yeah.
don't love yourself, take care of yourself, and nurture that in you, you have nothing to give to the people around you.
Yeah, and I think if you don't love yourself, if you don't, I think everything around you will show. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be more, you're going to get angry quicker. it's just going to be, it's just a different world when you take, when you take care of yourself and the people around you. It's going to be a better world around everybody around you. So
Wow. All right. Well, I thank you for being on the show. I want to remind listeners that if you're listening to this on Google or Apple or Spotify, there's 3 little asterisks in the upper right corner, and you can follow this podcast so that you get updates when new ones come out like this, because there's great people out there like Curtis here. And I thank you, Curtis, for being on the show.
oh, thank you for letting me, man. This has been amazing.
I know I love the sculpture behind you, and
Thank you.
I love your consciousness.
Thank you.